The letter wasn't addressed to Emily, but Emily opened it anyway. It wasn't curiosity, not exactly. It was something quieter than that, something that felt like recognition before understanding. The envelope had been left on the small table in the hallway, among things that no longer belonged to anyone in particular. Rachel's name was written across it in a slightly uneven line, as if the person who wrote it had paused halfway through. Emily didn't call her. She didn't send a message. She just turned the envelope over in her hands, noticing there was no stamp, no return address, and opened it. Emily had always lived in the spaces Rachel left behind. Not intentionally, not consciously. It had simply happened that way. Rachel moved first, into adulthood, into other cities, into decisions that seemed to shape the direction of everything else. Emily followed in quieter ways. She stayed longer. Not because she had nowhere to go, but because leaving had never felt urgent to her. Their childhood house still held both of them, even after Rachel left. Her room had been packed into boxes, labeled, sealed, but never taken away. The handwriting on the labels had started to fade slightly, the ink softening into the cardboard. Their parents said Rachel would come back for them eventually. She never did. Emily had gotten used to walking past those boxes. Sometimes she would stop and read the labels again. Books, winter clothes, miscellaneous, as if the words might change, as if something inside them might shift on its own. The letter didn't fit into that pattern. It was recent, clean, deliberate. Someone had brought it there, recently. Someone who knew Rachel wasn't there to receive it. The handwriting inside was steadier than on the envelope, controlled. Daniel. Emily had heard Rachel mention him once, maybe twice, never with emphasis, just in passing, like something temporary. Someone who existed in a different version of Rachel's life, one Emily didn't fully know. The letter didn't begin with explanation. It began mid-thought, as if the conversation had already been happening somewhere else and Emily had stepped into it halfway through. Daniel wrote about a moment, one that wasn't described in detail, but didn't need to be. The absence of specifics made it clearer, not less. A mistake. That was the word he used. Not dramatically, not defensively, just precisely. Emily noticed the way he avoided certain sentences, the way he circled around what had happened without naming it directly. There were lines that stopped too early, as if he had rewritten them and then decided not to. She read slowly, then again. There was no anger in the letter, no attempt to justify anything, only a quiet admission that something had already happened and that Rachel didn't know. Not yet. At the bottom, Daniel had written that he would tell her soon, that she deserved to hear it from him, that he hadn't found the right way to say it yet. The date at the top of the page was 3 days old. Emily folded the letter back along its original crease, pressing her fingers over the fold to match it exactly. For a moment, she considered putting it back on the table, leaving it where it belonged, letting things unfold the way they were meant to. But instead, she carried it into her room. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate either. She just didn't turn back. Rachel called that evening. The timing felt too precise to be coincidence. Emily stared at the phone long enough for it to ring twice more than usual before answering. Rachel sounded the same, light, distracted in the way she always was when she had too many things happening at once. She talked about a new cafe she liked, how the tables were too close together but the coffee was worth it, about the way the city felt different in the spring, about a coworker who kept forgetting meetings. Nothing about Daniel. Nothing about anything that could have been connected to the letter. Emily listened. She responded where it made sense. The conversation moved the way it always had, effortlessly, without tension. At one point, Rachel laughed. It was the same laugh Emily remembered from years ago, the kind that didn't hesitate. Emily looked at the letter on her desk. It was slightly misaligned now, not perfectly parallel to the edge of the table. She adjusted it absent-mindedly. She could say it now. She could interrupt, ask a question, mention Daniel's name in a way that would shift everything slightly off balance. Rachel paused, waiting for her to respond to something she had just said. Emily inhaled. Her hand rested on the edge of the desk, right next to the letter. Then she let the moment pass. "I'm listening," she said instead. After the call ended, the apartment felt unusually still. Not quiet, just settled. As if something had already been decided, even though nothing had been spoken. Emily told herself it wasn't her place. The letter hadn't been meant for her. The information wasn't hers to deliver. If Daniel was going to tell Rachel, then he would. That was the version of events that made the most sense. The one that required the least interference. So Emily placed the letter in the drawer beside her bed. Not hidden, not displayed, just kept. Days passed. Rachel called again. The conversations remained unchanged. Normal, consistent, unaffected by something Emily now knew existed just outside of them. At some point, Emily stopped expecting the moment to come up naturally, stopped waiting for Rachel to say something that would align with what she had read. She noticed smaller things instead. The way Rachel avoided pauses by filling them quickly. The way certain topics never came up anymore, even casually. Emily didn't ask about Daniel. Rachel didn't mention him. The absence became part of their conversations. Subtle, but present, like a gap that neither of them stepped into. Sometimes, late at night, Emily would take the letter out and read it again. Not because she needed to remember what it said, but because she needed to revisit the moment before everything settled into silence. She would sit on the edge of the bed, the drawer still open, the room dim except for a single lamp. The paper had already begun to soften along the fold, the crease becoming more permanent each time she opened it. The moment where saying something had still been possible, where the outcome hadn't yet been defined by what she chose not to do. She always folded it the same way afterward, carefully, precisely, aligning the edges as if accuracy mattered. Then she would place it back in the drawer, close it halfway, pause, and only then push it shut completely. As if leaving it slightly open, even for a second longer, meant the decision hadn't fully settled yet. If this story felt familiar, there are more like it here.